Jake Morrison stepped off the transport ship and looked around at his new school. The Galactic Academic Institute stretched out before him like a giant crystal palace. Tall spires reached toward the purple sky of Viridia Prime, and floating platforms carried students between buildings. Everything looked clean and perfect, like something from a dream. He adjusted his backpack and walked toward the main entrance. Other students moved around him, but they were not human. Jake had seen pictures of alien species before, but seeing them in person was different. A group of tall, graceful beings with silver skin glided past him. Their movements were smooth and elegant, like dancers. These must be the Zilithians he had read about. Near a fountain, several insect-like creatures stood in a perfect circle. They had 4 arms each, and their heads moved in quick, jerky motions. Their voices made clicking sounds as they talked. Jake knew these were Thraxians from the orientation materials. In the fountain itself, blue-green beings with fins moved through the water. They could breathe both air and water, which Jake thought was pretty cool. The Aquarians looked peaceful as they swam in slow circles. Jake felt nervous. He was the only human at this school. Earth had just joined the Galactic Council last year, and he was part of the first exchange program. The other species had been traveling between worlds for thousands of years. He was the newcomer here. A crystalline being approached him. It stood about 8 feet tall and looked like it was made of clear blue crystal. Light moved through its body in patterns that probably meant something, but Jake could not read them. "You must be the human student," the being said. Its voice sounded like wind chimes. "I am Professor Mentor Prime. Welcome to our institute." "Thank you," Jake said. "I'm Jake Morrison. Nice to meet you. Come. Orientation begins soon. You will meet your classmates." Jake followed the professor through halls lined with plants he had never seen before. The walls themselves seemed to glow with soft light. Everything was so clean and bright. There were no scratches on the walls, no worn spots on the floors. Even the plants looked perfect, as if someone trimmed each leaf by hand. They entered a circular room where about 20 students sat on floating cushions. Jake had never seen furniture that floated before, but he tried to act like it was normal. He found an empty cushion and sat down carefully. It felt solid enough even though it hung in the air. Professor Mentor Prime stood in the center of the circle. "Students, we have a new member joining our class. This is Jake Morrison from Earth. Jake, perhaps you would like to introduce yourself." Jake looked around at all the alien faces watching him. Some had large eyes. Others had no eyes he could see. A few had tentacles instead of hair. But they all seemed friendly enough. "Hi, everyone," Jake said. "I'm from Earth. It's a planet in the Sol system. I'm studying interstellar relations. I hope we can all be friends." A Zilithian with silver skin and long flowing hair raised her hand. "I am Kiravel. What is your world like, Jake Morrison?" Jake thought about how to describe Earth. Where should he start? "Well, it's pretty nice. We have oceans and mountains and forests. The weather changes with the seasons. There are lots of different animals. People live all over the planet in cities and towns." The students nodded politely. This sounded normal to them. "What about dangers?" asked a Thraxian whose name tag read Zix9. "Are there any challenges on your world?" Jake scratched his head. "I guess we have some challenges. Nothing too serious, though, just normal stuff." The students looked interested. They came from peaceful worlds where nothing dangerous ever happened. "What kind of normal stuff?" asked an Aquarian named Fin Depth. "Oh, weather can be tricky sometimes. We have some big animals. Natural disasters happen now and then. But people just deal with it." Jake shrugged. On Earth, these things were so common that everyone learned to live with them. The alien students exchanged glances. Weather being tricky sounded concerning. Big animals might be dangerous. Natural disasters were something they had only read about in textbooks. Professor Mentor Prime noticed the students' interest. "Perhaps you could give us more details about these challenges, Jake Morrison." "Well," Jake said slowly, "sometimes we get storms, rain and wind and lightning. In winter, it gets cold and snows. Summer can be really hot. We have earthquakes once in a while, volcanoes in some places. Wild animals live in forests and mountains. But it's not that bad. Humans have lived there for thousands of years. The room was very quiet now. The other students stared at Jake with wide eyes. Lightning sounded terrifying to beings who had never seen anything stronger than a gentle rain. Earthquakes were disasters they had only heard about in geology classes. Volcanoes were things that destroyed planets in scary movies. Kira Vell spoke in a whisper. Your people live with all these dangers every day? Sure, Jake said. I mean, most of the time nothing bad happens. We just prepare for stuff. Check the weather before going outside. Build houses that can handle storms. Stay away from wild animals. Basic common sense. The students looked at each other in amazement. This human talked about surviving constant threats like it was nothing special. They came from worlds where the biggest danger might be a flower with thorns or rain that lasted more than an hour. Professor Mentor Prime made some notes on a floating tablet. This is very educational. We look forward to learning more about your fascinating world, Jake Morrison. Jake smiled and nodded, not realizing that he had just become the most interesting student in the class. To him, Earth was just home. To his new classmates, he was a survivor from a nightmare world that somehow produced friendly, normal people. The orientation continued with other students sharing simple facts about their peaceful worlds. Jake listened politely, wondering why. Everyone seemed so impressed by basic stuff like seasons and weather. He figured they would understand better once they got to know him. He had no idea that his casual mention of lightning and earthquakes had already marked him as either the bravest being they had ever met or completely insane. 2 weeks into the semester, Jake sat in Professor Winsong's meteorology class. The tall, thin professor looked like a walking tree with silver bark and leaves for hair. She moved slowly and spoke in a voice that sounded like rustling branches. Today, we will discuss climate patterns from your homeworlds, Professor Winsong announced. Understanding weather helps us appreciate the diversity of our galaxy. Who would like to share first? Kiravel raised her graceful hand. I will speak about Zalith, Professor. She stood and activated a holographic display. Images of a beautiful world appeared, showing crystal cities surrounded by gardens. Zelith maintains a perfect temperature of 72 degrees throughout the year. Our atmosphere processors ensure gentle rainfall every third day for exactly 2 hours. Wind speeds never exceed 5 miles per hour. We have no storms or dangerous weather events. The other students nodded approvingly. This sounded like a proper civilized world. Zix-9 clicked his mandibles and stood next. Thraxia operates under controlled atmospheric management. Our weather systems are regulated by orbital stations. Temperature varies only between 70 and 75 degrees. Precipitation is scheduled and delivered through atmospheric dispensers. All weather serves the hive's agricultural needs. Finn Depth floated in his mobile water tank and spoke next. Aquarius has consistent water temperatures of 68 degrees. Our currents are managed by tidal generators. We experience gentle waves that never exceed 2 feet in height. Surface weather is mild rain that provides nutrients to our ocean. Farms? Professor Winsong turned to Jake. And what about Earth's climate, Jake Morrison? Jake stood up and thought about how to explain Earth's weather. Well, we have 4 seasons: spring, summer, fall, and winter. They each last about 3 months. The class listened with interest. Seasonal variation sounded exotic but manageable. In winter, temperatures can drop to maybe 20 or 30 below zero, sometimes lower in some places. Summer can get over 100 degrees, sometimes hotter. Spring and fall are in between, but they change a lot, day to day. The classroom fell, completely silent. 6-9's clicking stopped. Kiravel's silver skin turned pale. Finn Depth sank lower in his tank. Did you say below zero? Professor Winsong asked carefully. Yeah, it gets pretty cold. We wear coats and stuff. Some places get even colder. My uncle lives in Alaska where it can hit 60 below. But people still live there and work and go to school. The students stared at Jake in horror. Temperatures below freezing were considered uninhabitable by most galactic standards. The idea of intelligent beings choosing to live in such conditions seemed impossible. What about precipitation? The professor asked weakly. Oh, we get rain and snow, sometimes a lot. I've seen snowstorms dump 3 or 4 feet overnight. Rain can be pretty heavy too. Sometimes it rains for days straight. Kiravel raised a shaking hand. What do your people do during these storms? Usually just stay inside and wait for it to pass. Or we go out anyway if we need to. You just dress for the weather. Snow boots, umbrellas, that kind of thing. The alien students exchanged terrified glances. Going outside during a storm sounded like suicide to them. Jake continued, not noticing their fear. We also get some bigger storms sometimes. Hurricanes along the coasts. Those can be pretty intense. Winds over 100 miles per hour. Lots of rain. People usually evacuate or board. Up their houses. Evacuate? Zix9 whispered. Yeah, move somewhere safer until it passes. Though some people try to ride them out. My neighbor in Florida has been through like 20 hurricanes. He just stocks up on food and water and waits. Professor Windsong had to sit down. Winds over 100 miles per hour would destroy most buildings on civilized worlds. The idea of beings regularly experiencing such conditions was beyond her understanding. Are there other types of storms? She asked, though she was afraid to hear the answer. Tornadoes are probably the worst. They're like spinning columns of air that can destroy whole neighborhoods. Wind speeds can reach 300 miles per hour. They pick up cars and houses and throw them around. Several students made distressed sounds. Fin Depth dove to the bottom of his tank and covered his gills. But they don't happen everywhere, Jake said quickly, trying to be reassuring. Just in certain areas during certain seasons. Tornado Alley gets them the most. People there have storm shelters in their basements. Your people build underground bunkers? Kiravel asked. Well, sort of. Just small rooms with thick walls. Most of the time they're used for storage. But when a tornado warning comes, everyone goes down there, until it passes. How often do these warnings occur? Professor Windsong asked. Jake scratched his head. During tornado season, maybe a few times a month in bad areas. Most places only get 1 or 2 warnings a year. Sometimes they're false alarms, though. The class was stunned into silence. A few times a month, these humans received warnings that death was approaching, and they simply went underground and waited. Then they came back up and continued their normal lives. What about lightning? Asked a small, furry student named Pipsqueak. Oh yeah, we get lightning during thunderstorms. Pretty common, actually. Millions of lightning strikes hit Earth every day. Sometimes they start fires or knock out power. Once in a while someone gets struck, but it's pretty rare. Most people just stay inside during bad thunderstorms. Pipsqueak fainted and fell off his floating cushion. Jake looked around at his classmates' horrified faces. Is everything okay? I mean, Earth's weather isn't that bad. We just check the forecast and plan around it. Weather apps tell you what to expect. Professor Windsong stood on shaky legs. I think that is enough for today. Class dismissed. Everyone please review your homeworld climate data and appreciate how fortunate you are. As students filed out in shocked silence, Jake packed his notebook and wondered why everyone seemed so upset. Earth's weather was just weather. Sure, it could be inconvenient sometimes, but that was normal everywhere, right? He had no idea that his casual description of everyday Earth weather had convinced his classmates that humans were the toughest beings in the galaxy, surviving conditions that would kill most species instantly. Professor Bloomtender's biology class was always peaceful. The plant-like professor had green skin covered in tiny flowers that changed color with her mood. Today the flowers were bright yellow, which meant she was happy and excited. Students, today we will share presentations about the wildlife of your homeworlds, she announced. Understanding different ecosystems helps us appreciate the beauty of life across the galaxy. The alien students had prepared colorful displays showing the gentle creatures from their worlds. Kiravel went first, showing holographic images of small fluffy animals that look like living cotton balls. These are melody makers from Zelith, she explained. They sing beautiful songs and eat flower petals. They are very gentle and love to be petted. Children often keep them as companions. The class smiled and made soft sounds of appreciation. The melody makers looked adorable as they hopped around in the hologram, making tiny musical sounds. Zix9 presented next. His images showed orderly lines of small, 6-legged creatures with rainbow shells. These are garden tenders from Thraxia. They help maintain our crop fields by eating harmful insects. They live in perfect harmony with our hive cities. They are completely docile and follow simple commands. Fin Depth showed images of colorful fish-like beings that swam in perfect formations. These are current dancers from Aquarios. They perform synchronized swimming patterns that help guide our underwater vehicles. They eat algae and are very friendly. Young Aquarians learn to swim by following their movements. All the presentations followed the same pattern: small, harmless animals that helped their civilizations or provided companionship. Nothing dangerous, nothing that could hurt anyone. Professor Bloom-Tender's flowers turned brighter yellow with each presentation. Finally, it was Jake's turn. He stood up and activated his display. The first images showed dogs and cats. "These are common pets on Earth," Jake began. "Dogs are pack hunters that humans domesticated thousands of years ago. They have strong jaws and sharp teeth, but they're really loyal and friendly. Cats are natural predators with retractable claws and excellent night vision. They hunt smaller animals for fun even when they're not hungry." The class stared at the images with growing concern. These pets looked like efficient killing machines. The dogs showed their teeth when they opened their mouths, and the cats had predator eyes that tracked movement. "Humans keep these predators in their homes?" asked Pipsqueak nervously. "Yeah, they're great companions. Dogs protect families and play with children. Cats are independent but affectionate. Most humans love their pets like family members." The alien students exchanged worried glances. Humans lived with predators and considered them family. Jake clicked to the next slide, showing a massive brown bear standing on its back legs. "This is a grizzly bear. They can weigh up to 800 pounds and run 35 miles per hour. They have huge claws and can catch fish with their bare hands. Pretty impressive animals." Several students gasped. The bear in the image looked like it could destroy a building. "Are these kept in secure containment facilities?" Professor Bloom-Tender asked, her flowers turning orange with worry. "Oh no, they live in the wild. We have national parks where families go to see them. You're supposed to keep your distance and store food properly, but people camp in bear country all the time. My family went to Yellowstone last summer. We saw 3 bears during our week there." "Your family deliberately went to a place with these creatures?" Kiravel whispered. "Sure, it's fun. Nature watching is a popular hobby. You just follow basic safety rules." Jake clicked to the next image, showing a great white shark with its mouth open, displaying rows of razor-sharp teeth. "These are sharks, ocean predators with incredible senses. They can smell blood from miles away, and their bite force can crush bones. This one is probably 15 feet long." Fin Depth sank to the bottom of his tank and refused to come up. "People still go in the ocean?" he called from underwater. "Of course, swimming, surfing, fishing, diving. Shark attacks are really rare. You're more likely to get struck by lightning." The students remembered Jake's previous description of lightning and shuddered. The presentation continued with more terrifying revelations. Jake showed images of venomous snakes that could kill with a single bite, big cats that hunted humans' ancestors, crocodiles that had remained unchanged for millions of years because they were perfect predators. "This is a tiger," Jake said, showing a massive orange and black striped cat. "They're solitary hunters that can take down prey much larger than themselves. There aren't many left in the wild, which is sad. Conservation groups work hard to protect them." "Protect them?" Zix9 clicked frantically. "Why would you want more of these apex killers? They're important for the ecosystem. Plus, they're beautiful animals. Really amazing to watch." Professor Bloom-Tender's flowers were now deep red, indicating extreme distress. "Jake Morrison, do any harmless animals live on Earth?" Jake thought for a moment. "Well, rabbits are pretty harmless. They just eat plants and hop around, though they do have really strong back legs and sharp teeth." The class stared at him in disbelief. Even Earth's harmless animals had weapons. "What about the creatures that live near human settlements?" asked Kiravel. "Oh, lots of things. Raccoons go through our garbage at night. They're really smart and have tiny hands like people. Squirrels live in trees and sometimes get into attics. Deer wander through neighborhoods eating people's gardens. Sometimes bears come into towns looking for food." "Bears come into your towns?" Professor Bloom-Tender nearly shouted. Yeah, especially in mountain areas, you just make noise and they usually leave. Sometimes animal control has to relocate them. It's not a big deal. The room was completely silent. These humans lived surrounded by predators and considered it normal. They shared their planet with creatures that could kill them and called it beautiful. They went on vacation to see dangerous animals for fun. One more thing, Jake said, clicking to his final slide. This is Australia. It's a continent where pretty much everything is more dangerous than the rest of Earth. But people live there too. Nice beaches. The image showed a spider the size of a dinner plate sitting on someone's hand. Pipsqueak fainted again. This time, 3 other students joined him on the floor. Professor Bloom-Tender dismissed class early, her flowers now black with shock. A student stumbled out in terrified silence. Jake packed up his presentation, wondering why everyone looked so pale. He figured maybe they just weren't used to wildlife presentations. Different cultures probably had different comfort levels with animals. He made a mental note to start with smaller creatures next time. During the recreational activities seminar, Professor Joylight bounced gently in her chair. She was a small, round being covered in soft purple fur that glowed when she was happy. Her species believed that play and relaxation were the most important parts of any education. Today we will discuss how different cultures enjoy their free time, she announced cheerfully. Understanding recreation helps us bond across species. Who would like to share their favorite activities? Kiravel raised her hand first. On Zelith, we practice floating meditation. We lie on crystal platforms that hover over peaceful gardens. The gentle sounds of melody makers help us achieve perfect mental balance. Sometimes we arrange light crystals in harmony patterns. The class nodded approvingly. This sounded wonderfully. Peaceful Odd69 spoke next. Thraxians enjoy group puzzle construction. We work together to build complex geometric structures using our 4 arms. Everything is carefully planned to avoid any possibility of injury. We also practice synchronized movement patterns that strengthen our hive unity. Beautiful, Professor, Joylight said, her fur glowing brighter. What about you, Fin Depth? The Aquarian floated peacefully in his tank. We enjoy current dancing. Groups of Aquarians move together through gentle water flows. We also grow bioluminescent gardens on the ocean floor. Everything glows with soft, calming colors. Very relaxing. Other students shared similar activities, gentle sports with soft bouncing balls, artistic endeavors using safe materials, mental exercises that promoted inner peace. No one mentioned anything that could possibly result in injury. Professor Joylight turned to Jake with eager eyes. And what do humans do for recreation, Jake Morrison? Jake smiled and thought about home. Well, I really miss football season. Friday night games were always fun in high school. Football? Asked Kiravel. Is that a mental exercise? No, it's a sport. 2 teams try to move a ball down a field by running and throwing. The other team tries to stop them. How do they stop them? Professor Joylight asked innocently. Tackling. You run into the other player and knock them down before they can advance the ball. The room went very quiet. The alien students stared at Jake with wide eyes. You deliberately run into each other? Zix9 clicked nervously. Yeah, that's the whole point. Some of those guys are huge too. 300 pounds of muscle running at full speed. When they collide, you can hear it across the field. Several students made distressed sounds. Deliberate collisions between large beings sounded like warfare. Do players get injured? Professor Joylight asked, her fur starting to dim. Sometimes. Broken bones, concussions, torn muscles. But everyone wears protective gear. Helmets and padding and stuff. Most injuries aren't too serious. Broken bones? Whispered Pipsqueak. It's part of the game. Players know the risks. They train hard and accept that injuries happen. My friend Danny broke his arm junior year, but he was back playing the next season. The alien students looked horrified. They came from cultures where any injury was considered a terrible accident requiring immediate medical intervention and trauma counseling. What other activities do humans enjoy? Professor Joylight asked weakly. Jake was just getting started. Rock climbing is pretty popular. You scale vertical cliff faces using just ropes and your hands and feet. Some people do it without ropes, which is called free soloing. They climb deadly heights without safety equipment? Kiravel gasped. Yeah, it takes a lot of skill and courage. Really impressive to watch. There are also indoor climbing walls for practice. But outdoor climbing is more challenging because of weather and loose rocks. What happens if they fall? Fin Depth asked from the bottom of his tank. That's why most people use ropes and safety gear. Though even with equipment, accidents happen. But climbers accept the risk because they love the challenge. Jake continued, enthusiastically. Skiing is awesome too. You strap boards to your feet and race down steep mountains covered in snow. Some ski runs are almost vertical. Downhill racers can hit 80 miles per hour. The students were beyond horrified now. Humans deliberately launched themselves down mountains at deadly speeds for entertainment. Do they ever crash? Asked a trembling voice from the back. Oh yeah, wipeouts are pretty common, that's why you wear helmets. Sometimes people hit trees or go off cliffs. Ski Patrol has to rescue injured people pretty regularly. Professor Joylight was now a dim gray color indicating extreme distress. Motorcycles are fun too, Jake added. High-speed racing on two wheels. MotoGP riders lean so far over in turns that their knees almost touch the ground at 150 miles per hour. They race at speeds that could kill them instantly if they make an error. Zix9 was clicking frantically. That's what makes it exciting. The skill required is incredible. Though crashes do happen, riders wear leather suits and armor, but it's still dangerous. What about peaceful activities? Professor Joylight pleaded. Surely humans have some safe recreations. Jake thought for a moment. Well, swimming is relaxing. Though we do have diving competitions where people jump from high platforms and do flips and spins before hitting the water. How high? Whispered Kiravel. Olympic high dive is about 33 feet, but some crazy people dive from cliffs that are over 100 feet high. One wrong move and you'd get seriously hurt. What about your younger humans? What do children do for fun? Jake's face lit up. Oh, kids love playgrounds, swings, slides, monkey bars. My little sister Katie does gymnastics. She's only 12, but she can do backflips off a 4-inch wide balance beam. A child deliberately launches herself through the air. Fin Depth surfaced just long enough to ask before diving back down in terror. Yeah, she's really good at it. Takes years of practice. Gymnastics builds strength and coordination. Some moves are pretty dangerous if you mess up, but that's what makes it challenging. Professor Joylight stood up on shaky legs. I think we have learned enough about human recreation for one day. Class dismissed. Everyone please go practice some safe, gentle activities to calm your nerves. As the traumatized students filed out, Jake packed his notebook and wondered why everyone looked so upset. He had just been talking about normal, fun activities that people did every weekend. He decided that maybe aliens just had different ideas about entertainment. Their activities sounded kind of boring to him, but different cultures probably had different comfort levels with excitement and challenge. Jake had no idea that his casual description of human recreation had convinced his classmates that his entire species was completely insane. The final project for Professor Mentor Prime's class was supposed to be simple. Each student would research and present their homeworld's official classification in the Galactic Registry. Most students looked forward to this assignment because it was easy and let them share pride in their peaceful worlds. Jake had been dreading this day for weeks. He knew what Earth's classification was, and he knew it would shock his classmates. But there was no way around it. The information was public, record in the Galactic database. Students presented their worlds one by one. Kiravel stood first, her silver skin glowing with pride. Zelith is classified as a Class A paradise world, she announced. This means perfect atmospheric conditions, no dangerous weather, no hostile life forms, and complete environmental stability. Only 12 worlds in the galaxy have achieved Class A status. The class applauded politely. Class A worlds were the gold standard of civilization. Zix9 presented next. Thraxia is a Class B garden world. We have managed weather systems, controlled ecosystems, and harmonious life forms. All potential dangers have been eliminated through careful engineering over thousands of years. More applause. Class B worlds were also considered excellent places to live. Fin Depth spoke from his tank. Aquarios holds Class C controlled world status. Our ocean currents are regulated, temperatures are stable, and all sea life lives in peaceful cooperation. Natural disasters were eliminated centuries ago through tidal management systems. The presentations continued in the same pattern. Class C, controlled worlds, Class D managed environments, and a few Class E developing worlds that were working toward better classifications. Even the most challenging world presented was a Class F, with minor seasonal weather variations. Professor Mentor Prime consulted her list and turned to Jake. Jake Morrison, please present Earth's classification. Jake stood slowly and walked to the front of the class. He activated the holographic display and took a deep breath. Earth is classified as a Class Dying Deathworld, he said quietly. The classroom erupted in shocked gasps and whispers. Students looked at each other in disbelief. Professor Mentor Prime checked her database twice, certain there had been an error. Class Dortine? She asked in a voice like breaking crystal. Are you certain? Yes, ma'am. Earth received its classification after the Galactic Survey 3 years ago. The student stared at Jake in stunned silence. Class Duarin. Death worlds were theoretical nightmare scenarios used in xenobiology textbooks. They were examples of planets where intelligent life should be impossible. Jake clicked to his first slide, showing Earth's basic statistics. Earth experiences extreme temperature variations from -60 to +130 degrees Fahrenheit. Weather systems include hurricanes with winds over 200 miles per hour, tornadoes, lightning storms, blizzards, and floods. Professor Dio, Mentor Prime, had to sit down. These conditions would kill most galactic species within minutes. The planet has active geological systems, Jake continued. Earthquakes, volcanic eruptions, tsunamis, and landslides occur regularly. Tectonic plates are constantly moving and colliding. Kiravel was making small crying sounds. Her perfect world had no geological activity at all. Earth receives deadly radiation from its star, blocked only by a thin atmospheric layer that can be damaged. The planet has experienced multiple mass extinction events. 99% of all species that ever lived on Earth are now extinct. Several students fainted. The idea of living through mass extinctions was beyond their comprehension. The ecosystem operates on a predator-prey system where almost every organism either hunts or is hunted. Survival requires constant competition for resources. Jake paused and looked at his terrified classmates. But humans didn't just survive on Earth. We became the dominant species. How? Whispered Zix9. We adapted. We learned to work together, use tools, and change our environment. We built shelters to protect us from weather. We developed medicine to fight diseases. We created agriculture to ensure food supplies. But you have no natural weapons, Pipsqueak said from the floor where he had fallen. No claws, no armor, no venom. That's right. Humans are actually pretty weak compared to most animals on Earth. We can't run very fast or jump very high. Our teeth and nails aren't sharp. We don't have thick skin or fur. Then how did you survive? Professor Mentor Prime asked. Intelligence and cooperation. We made weapons and tools. We tamed fire and learned to cook food. We built communities and shared knowledge. Most importantly, we never gave up. Jake clicked to a slide showing human cities. We turned Earth's challenges into advantages. We learned to predict weather and build stronger structures. We studied dangerous animals and found ways to avoid or protect ourselves from them. We even learned to enjoy the excitement and beauty of our dangerous world. The class stared at images of humans living normal lives on a planet that should have killed them all. Every human child grows up learning to survive conditions that would be instantly fatal to most galactic species, Jake explained. We check weather forecasts every day because storms can kill us. We teach children to identify dangerous animals and plants. We practice emergency procedures for earthquakes and fires. You train your young for constant survival? Kiravel asked in amazement. We have to. Earth doesn't give us a choice. But it also made us strong and adaptable. Humans can live almost anywhere and survive almost anything because we learned on The hardest world in the galaxy. Professor Mentor Prime stood up slowly. This explains so much about your previous presentations. What you consider normal childhood activities would be classified as extreme survival training by our standards. I guess so, Jake said. I never really thought about it that way. Earth is just home. The semester ended with a new understanding between Jake and his classmates. They looked at him with a mixture of terror and deep respect. He was not just a friendly student from another world. He was a survivor from a planet so hostile that merely growing up there was an achievement that would be considered legendary by any other species. Jake packed his books and headed to lunch, still not fully understanding why everyone seemed so impressed. To him, humans were just people who had learned to live with their environment. His classmates watched him leave and quietly agreed that humans might be the toughest species in the galaxy.